So I have a question I've been asking myself since this latest episode of To Your Eternity came to a close. If Fushi would have theoretically lost the fight and lost every single form that he's obtained thus far, would he really still be Fushi? Because think about this. Everything that has happened to Fushi up to this point is kind of what has created him into what he is. It has formed his very personality, his intellect. Everything he knows is thanks to every experience he's had with every character and what he's obtained when he's obtained their form. And if he was to, say, lose all of that, would he theoretically die? Would the old Fushi cease to exist? And even if he can't fully die, he would just revert back to an orb. He most likely would become something very different. He might become something that is not even similar to what Fushi once was. I do wonder, because if that is indeed the case, there is fear that Fushi can die then. There is actually that ramification that even if his full physical form isn't gone, the mental state of him could be. So that is an interesting little development we got with this episode, kind of revealing that there is potential for Fushi to kind of die in his own way. Now, obviously the story can extend this, and we might have gotten a hint at how Fushi actually can die. Because I want to point out the fact, how Fushi defeated his opponent in the second half of the episode, the vine creature. He pulled on this orb, this weird core inside of his body, and then when he pulled it out, he crushed it. You see the implication of him actually crushing the core. And I wonder, since we do know Fushi started from literally an orb, if that was to get pulled out of him, if it is in him, would he die? See, I wonder about that. I really do wonder, because this episode brings up that possibility that Fushi has a core just like that entity, and if that core that Fushi probably has gets destroyed in whatever way, he ceased to exist. So it's not just the fact that he might mentally die and never be the same ever again, but there might be an actual legitimate way for Fushi to die, and that is his core. Unless he is just more immune, since his creator seems to be a little bit more stronger than whoever created the vine entity. Obviously, it's been kind of presented since the very beginning that God, or some form of God, created Fushi. We saw him literally at the beginning of the story cast down a pebble, an orb, and it became our character. And we've always heard this narrator throughout the episodes talk, and I think everybody at this very point probably is like, oh, it's just that voice that a narrator gets, that, this unseen character, this character that always just retells events. But then we find out that the very narrator that's been around since the first episode actually is a legitimate character within the story, and this narrator actually is the entity that created Fushi, basically God, his maker. Now, this is where I want to extend that knowledge at. So basically, since we know that this entity is the creator of Fushi, is he God, or is he something else? What type of story is this writer trying to create right now? Because when I look at this dude in the robe, this dark robe, looking very suspicious around Fushi, he looks evil. Am I the only one that got that impression? When I saw the character's overall design, the way he looks very, very evil. His eye, his voice, the alluring voice, the way he just hides himself, everything about it is very menacing. And even just looking at this opponent, this vine creature, is like, that's your enemy. Just everything about the way the dude interacts with Fushi in this episode and narrates, it gives me that feeling, that ominous feeling that this is a bad guy. This is the main villain. And so, I'm going to throw a spin here, a twist that I think the series is trying to make. What if the maker of Fushi actually isn't God? And they're wanting to throw, like, some religion into this, and it might be like the devil or Lucifer or something. That would be interesting, if that is the direction the writer wants to take it. Now, I could be completely wrong, and it might not follow that format or theme or whatever, but it could be. And it would make sense why this vine creature pop out to get rid of the, the abnormal Fushi that should actually die, shouldn't actually be immortal. Maybe that is the reason. And maybe you have God or gods that are, like, going after Fushi because he isn't natural. He shouldn't exist in this world. That's just the big thing I want to present. However, there is some other hints that this guy that is talking with Fushi and is his creator says his opponent within this episode was a failure, was someone that would steal. So basically, it couldn't create its own type of experiences. It literally had to steal. And when you think about it, you know, Fushi's kind of very similar. He has stolen the identity of a lot of people that has been around him. I mean, every time they die, he takes upon their form. So what really separates Fushi from that entity that was the vine creature? It was basically doing the exact same thing. In fact, the way it acted seemed like it lacked as much intelligence as what Fushi was a few episodes back. It just seemed like it really didn't know about its capabilities, its power, what it could do, etc. And that's why Fushi was able to overwhelm it. Maybe the reason why the maker of Fushi thinks it's a failure is probably because maybe the failure actually can die. And maybe that core, it's not fully immortal, which we saw, and Fushi's actually is. So, I don't know, it's very mysterious. This is a very fascinating episode because it really brings up a lot of questions. Like, is that guy our main villain? Who is sending these vine creatures? Who created the vine creature? What is the objective of what the maker did to Fushi? Because from what we are presented, he basically is wanting Fushi to preserve the world. And when I think of preserving the world, I think of something like an arc situation. Like, you know, since we're getting into, like, this god themes and stuff, I think of, like, an arc. Being able to carry the knowledge of previous generations and all the entities that have existed throughout history. That's what I look at when he says, like, I want you to preserve things. Unless he's like an alien creature that just wants to have a catalog. He's like a collector, and he wants to have a catalog of different things to add to his, like, souvenir shop or whatever. I don't know, just, that's a spit in the dark right there. All I'm trying to say is that I wonder what his objective is, because it's definitely not going to be the same thing as Fushi. Fushi's probably going to eventually become his own being, his own thing that fights for his own survival, and doesn't want to actually do the exact same thing that his creator wants. The question is, would his creator be happy with that? Would his creator be happy with Fushi becoming his own individual? Or does he want to rein him in and control him? We also know that the entity is capable of stopping time, so that one is very unnerving. So time literally was stopped, and he was able to talk freely with Fushi. So he has some unworldly powers. So there is a lot of supernatural within this series. I mean, the opening song definitely hinted at that, but now we can clearly see there is more supernatural going on besides just Fushi and him being immortal. So I do wonder what the objective, what's really going on within this world right now of To Your Eternity. Now, carrying on, though, I want to talk about the intellect of Fushi and how far he's come within this episode. He learned human language. Obviously, he's still very early on. He's basically like a, I guess a first grader or even less than a first grade in terms of speaking right now. But he is someone that actually is capable of speech, or at least understanding the simplicities of certain things in dialogue. For instance, trees, river, fire, fish, food, something delicious, thank you, and just able to kind of talk about things, have a casual conversation with the old lady within this episode. So he is now slowly starting to form bonds, these connections, this dialogue, and being able to put his thoughts, his emotions in words. He's able to finally express himself for the first time, and so this is going to lead to a lot of discovery for Fushi to find out what he wants to strive for, what is he, and what has he lost and gained throughout his journey. And I feel like one of the next steps for his character now is to find out about his immortality. For instance, how different he is from those around him, how those around him can die so easily, while he is someone that can just continuously get back up. It's time he finally faces this reality of just how different he is from regular mortal people around him. But on top of that, I think a lesson he needs to learn is also the passage of time, because this is definitely something that hasn't really been fully dived into. We know he's been around for a very long time, an untold amount of time, as a rock and in moss, etc. But I wonder if Fushi, can he actually age? Like, could the bodies he takes form in, do they age? or do they not age? And if he sees those around him aging and getting older and older to the point to where they die, I wonder how he'd feel about that, being left alone in a world where people just die around him and he's just no aging. I'm curious about that. That is a direction the story can go as well. And I do wonder how that woman that survived in the last episode is going to play into all of this. Actually, that's another thing I need to talk about. So the woman that survived in the last episode, one of my most hated character of this anime season, I think, if I had to assume plot-wise what really spice up the plot, is if whatever is the enemy of Fushi, like the person that is sending, like this vine creature and all that, might do something to the woman and create her to have some form of powers to be able to combat Fushi. I feel like something like that's gonna happen. It's too good. It's too good of a plot point not to have it. I feel like that's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. So yeah, just overall, To Your Eternity has been a fantastic watch. This week's episode was so freaking good. Like, honestly, like, I can't get enough, man. It's a good freaking series. This is a really, really good anime, and I'm so happy I get to watch it for Spring of Anime 2021, and hopefully all of you guys are having a good time watching it alongside of me, and I mean, seriously, this really is one of my favorite series of this anime season, besides VV and 86 and all that. But I'm going to leave it at that, though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you got this video, please leave a like. And with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.